Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, Google, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
and Peter.
Episode 46, recorded on November 6, 2019. Google finally recognizes the Cloud Pod hosts as celebrities.
Excellent.
Love it.
Good evening. How's it going, guys? It's another lovely Wednesday here on Ignite Week. So it's been a busy week in the Azure world, but a little quieter on the AWS front and the Google front as they kind of take a back seat to the big news of Azure this week.
I'm sure they're saving, Amazon's obviously saving the good stuff for reInvent coming up here.
Yeah, I've noticed much less. Like last year, about this time last year, Amazon were pumping out these press releases. I'm like, wow, what are they going to say for reInvent? But this year, there's virtually nothing. It's kind of interesting, but yeah.
It's definitely been a little quiet on the pre-announcement front for reInvent. Also, just noticing other things about the schedule got out late. I feel like to book your sessions, the mobile app hasn't been updated. I think everything's a little bit behind, which is sort of funny because I've heard from people inside of AWS that they started planning for reInvent like 3 months earlier this year than they did last year. So it's a little interesting how that turns out on this side of the process.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's move on to some follow-up items. We have quite a few actually this week, which is a bit nice. So first of all, in episode 34, we talked about AWS suing Philip Moyer. Philip Moyer was a sales rep who had moved from AWS to Google Cloud. On the AWS side, he was dealing with healthcare customers, and on the Google side, he was dealing with financial services. And AWS attempted to argue that is against their non-compete clauses in their contract, and the court has now ruled, and the court is basically saying, sorry, Amazon, you're out of luck. The ruling came down that they are not allowed to prevent him from going to Google, but they did impose some conditions on Philip for his work at Google, so he cannot work with Google Cloud financial services customers. He cannot contact any AWS customers, including healthcare customers. And this prohibits him from talking to customers on AWS interested in moving to GCP as well, and may not contact potential AWS or GCP customers in the financial services space. So he has to stick to that healthcare vertical, and he can't talk to healthcare companies that are already on AWS trying to make a move, at least for the period of his non-compete.
So was that like time limited? I didn't see anything in the article about that, but was it like for
I assume it has to be time limited because your non-compete's only typically valid for 12 to 18 months, and that's really the time that they're concerned about the competitive threat of what he might know or might be able to use to take advantage of AWS in a sales opportunity.
Yeah, it's like a weird discrepancy between a right-to-work state and these contracts that employers make you sign. So
it's interesting. There's a couple of notes here from the judge. And that I thought was a little interesting. He said the court is especially aware that all but the most advantaged employees are unlikely to combat Amazon's broad claims. Amazon no doubt relishes its opportunity to exert pressure and control over its departing employees. But he put in his filing notes, Moyer is not a developer. The court struggles to see how Moyer is likely to lead timely development of Google Cloud services to compete with AWS services that are already being developed. First, the services may not even transfer to Google Cloud's current offerings. Secondly, it may not be possible to develop competing services within Google Cloud's framework. And third, Google Cloud is presumably already planning its own services to seek what it expects to be its own competitive advantage. So basically saying this is a little bit unfair. You're picking on employees who may not have the legal means to fight this in court like Philip did, and that's a really unfortunate situation. And then, the fact that he's a salesperson, he's not actually building product or IP that could conflict with something that AWS is already building, most likely in his role as a salesperson. So
yeah, but
interesting.
Salespeople build rapport with customers, and customers are often very attached to their salespeople, especially after years of dealing with them. So I suppose if you believe the salesperson believes in the product they're selling, and they move somewhere else, and they think that it's a better product, then it's understandable that customers want to move with them.
Yeah, potentially if that relationship is there, but it's hard to say. There's a few times where a salesperson's moved from company to company where I've sort of like had loyalty to that salesperson across companies. Typically, you're loyal to the products that you're being sold, and the salesperson's just the person lying to you most of the time anyways. So.
It was pretty cool that judge seems pretty smart. That's pretty cool. He seemed to have really relevant comments about a pretty abstract service offering. So that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely good. I would think if you're a judge in the Seattle area or any place on Tech Hub, you should be somewhat adverse in some of the issues of the day in that space, but definitely refreshing to see. Moving on to Capital One, as you guys know, Paige Thompson was arrested in conjunction with the Capital One breach. There's been some updates in the case that I thought we'd update you on. So apparently they've identified 20 to 30 terabytes of data in her possession as part of the Capital One probe. And apparently 30 other organizations in and outside the U.S. were also accessed by Paige using custom scanning software that searched for misconfigured firewalls meant to protect corporate information stored in the cloud. Thompson still has not been released on bail, and the trial has been scheduled for March 2020. So I bet we'll get a lot more information as that gets closer to us. Senator Wyden and Warren, we mentioned their letter and the response from AWS back to them a few months back. They have now sicked the FTC onto AWS. They believe that AWS may have broken the law by renting defective servers to Capital One. This is their concern after the Capital One breach by Paige Thompson. They're referring mostly to known issues with SSRF vulnerabilities in the cloud, and that they believe, unlike Google and Microsoft, who have been providing protections for SSRF since 2013 and 2017, respectively, Amazon has failed to do so, even though it's been discussed at customer conferences for the last 5 years. And apparently in August 2018, there was a cybersecurity expert who reached out to them and asked them to adopt that process, and they have so far ignored that process. So overall, this is one of those positioning letters, especially in this very political time, and Amazon agreed. Their comment was, the letter's claim is baseless and a publicity attempt from opportunistic politicians. As Capital One has explained, the perpetrator attacked a misconfiguration at the application layer of a Capital One firewall. The SSRF technique used in this incident was just one of the many subsequent steps the perpetrator followed after gaining access to the company's systems, and could have been substituted for a number of other methods given the level of access already gained.
Yeah.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the opposite end of the judge is Ron Wyden and Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, I guess so.
No comment.
No.
Gonna move right along from that comment.
Yeah, I'm actually, on I guess a more personal note, I'm happy that the judge is acknowledging the challenges that somebody like Paige Thompson is going to face in jail or in prison, and it's just sort of trying to accommodate, the safety of her.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't put that in the show notes, but it was in the article. But they mentioned the judge is concerned about her well-being and her ability to get treatment to help with her her transition items that she needs, etc. Because she is a transitioning woman, and so he was definitely concerned about her safety and her ability to get the medical treatment that she needs. And so that was something he does want to figure out some way to get her out on bail, it sounds like, at the end of the day, but they have not quite figured out what that looks like yet. Well, moving on to AWS new news, instead of follow-ups here. Amazon Web Services has decided to expand to Spain with a new cloud region. This will be the seventh new region in the EU, joining Dublin, Frankfurt, London, Paris, Stockholm, and soon Milan. Spain will open in late 2022 or early 2023. Peter DeSantis, VP of Global Infrastructure at AWS, said, "Cloud computing is already powering innovation within businesses, educational institutes, public administrations, and government agencies across Spain. And with this AWS infrastructure region, we look forward to helping accelerate this transformation. Opening an AWS region in Spain will drive more technology jobs and businesses, boosting local economy, while enabling organizations across all industries to lower costs, increase security, and improve agility. We're excited to have AWS contribute to the future growth of Spain."
Shout out to Flavio in Spain.
Yes, shout out to Flavio.
Definitely. Yeah, that's cool.
Apparently, AWS is Esquema Nacional de Seguridad. I just butchered all of that. ENS High Certified, meaning its infrastructure meets the highest levels of security and compliance for government agencies. And my Spanish is not good, so I apologize to our Spanish listeners.
Excellent.
AWS has announced post-quantum TLS, now available in KMS. Of course, AWS KMS is supporting this through the TLS encryption protocol and will be used with the new KMS API endpoints. Post-quantum TLS is a feature that adds new post-quantum cipher suites to the protocol. AWS implemented this in June 2019 with two proposed post-quantum hybrid cipher suites specified in the IETF draft. The cipher suites specify a key exchange that provides the security protections of both the classical and post-quantum schemes. And this gets into a lot of math that I don't understand. And so I'm sure this is really interesting for many, many people, one of those not being me, because I don't understand the math completely. But definitely trying to be future-proof a little bit with this post-quantum talk around encryption. Yeah,
I guess the crux of the matter here is that the suspicion is that quantum computing can crack current TLS public key encryption, and that this new algorithm can sort of sidestep that, or at least delay the risks associated with this type of encryption and quantum computing. Especially with Google announcing their quantum supremacy recently.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty. There was a lot of doomsday talk about quantum computers basically making encryption obsolete, and it's great that we now have a quantum computer that can theoretically do a tiny bit of math, and we've already got proposed standards for quantum-proof encryption.
I mean, they call it post-quantum, but we're not really there yet. So this is kind of like pre-post-quantum.
It's preemptive quantum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, preemptive. That's what it is, exactly.
And the algorithms that have been developed for quantum computers, which aren't actually capable of running the algorithms yet, are certainly capable of breaking TLS as is right now very quickly.
Oh, for sure.
I think this may be slightly preemptive. I think quantum computing can probably break anything that's thrown at it at this point as far as encryption goes, because of the way it can parallelize these kind of processes. But yeah, it's
and even the quantum computers that are out today, which are using qubit processors, are not really true quantum, are they? I mean, this is not an area that I'm strong in, so some reader can write into us and say I'm wrong. I'm happy to be corrected. But
they are.
My understanding is they're not really quantum. They're close. They're very, very close, but they're not quite what the definition of quantum is, at least in the original papers around this topic.
IBM definitely have quantum computers, and you can log into the website and register an account, and you can actually run your own code on their quantum computers, or in their simulator at least. And I'm sure Google claim to have an enormous number of qubits for their quantum computer. So I think we're here right now, but I think the people who have control over these computers are probably not the people we need to worry about for now.
I imagine they come with a very, very large price tag.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, millions or billions of dollars for sure.
Easily, and probably the NSA has several of them.
It'd be easier to pay people for their passwords than it would be to build a computer to crack their encryption.
For the right amount, I might be willing to sell it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then they switch their Cypher
most
suite.
companies already have it because of all the breaches that have happened over the years.
Yeah. Hey everyone, Jonathan here. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the cloud consulting gurus at Foghorn for helping make the Cloud Pod possible. These folks truly get it. Cloud consulting experts since 2008, they are premier tier partners with AWS, Google Cloud Platform Silver, and Microsoft Azure partners. From multi-cloud to containers to moving full production workloads to the cloud under the tightest compliance, Foghorn's team of full-stack cloud engineers have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and are ready to share their experience with you. If you're in the market for some talent to supplement your team, visit www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. Foghorn, the promise of cloud delivered.
Well, moving on to Google. Apparently on Halloween, after we recorded, a pretty major outage occurred. This was tipped off to us from an active listener on our Slack channel. So again, if you have not joined us on our Slack channel, it's a pretty fun place to hang out and talk about different cloud questions or cloud news that's happening out there, and we can help try to decipher that for you. But someone tipped us off to, hey, did the Google outage impact you guys, or are you aware of it? And so that was a link into the status page. Apparently, this outage started on the 31st at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time and went until November 2nd at 10:51 a.m. So that is a 2.5-day outage of their main system. Apparently, customers were apparently impacted if they attempted to create or delete backend services, subnets, instance groups, and firewall rules initially. That was later updated to say Cloud Armor was also impacted, and then eventually Google Compute Engine, GKE, Google Cloud Memory Store, and the App Engine Flexible all were receiving much, much higher error rates than initially expected. This continued on. The announcements were a little weird. If you look at the timeline of the event, they pretty much had the same canned answer from 6 o'clock until the next morning around 9 o'clock in the morning, when GCP kind of updated with an actual status update that made sense and had actual information for you, which makes you feel like the engineers were all out trick-or-treating that night.
Absolutely.
And didn't come in until the next morning to actually look at the issue, which is a little concerning. And then by about 2 o'clock that afternoon, they had about 30% of the GCP still impacted, and started to see some of the error rates go down. They then said that they would take overnight to complete the processing the backlog, and then the next morning they finally confirmed at 10:51 that other than a few handful of operations, they were completely out of the outage situation. There has been no RCA yet on this. We will keep an eye out for it here at the Cloud Pod and report back on that. But a really bad day for Google GCP customers. So that's unfortunate. Hug ops. This is one of those areas where I really talk about the importance of understanding the culture of your cloud provider. And so, you see Azure spending a lot of money trying to be preemptive and avoid outages through intelligence and machine learning and AI. I don't know what Google's doing on this area exactly because they haven't really been very public about it. But then Amazon is very adamant about separation of availability zones from regions and no interdependent regional services. And they've really been sticking to that for a long time, which is why you don't really see a lot of services that are multi-region aware or even multi-region capable without doing your own stitching, because it violates their core primitive and principle around independence of each data center. And so those cultural things end up impacting you in big ways. And this is one of those areas where this is a global outage because of the way this process and service is designed by Google that may or may not have happened on something like AWS or Azure based on their principles, which are different.
Yeah, but that global network is so convenient when you're configuring it.
It is really fast. It's very sexy.
It's convenient. It's like, yeah, sure. One network. I'll add subnets from any region to your network.
Well, good news, you guys. Google has added celebrity recognition now to their machine learning algorithms for approved media and entertainment customers.
Woohoo!
Video, of course, is all but unsearchable without expensive, labor-intensive tagging processes. So this is a new catalog of celebrities who are approved and known, and they will basically be available in this database that you can access as a media and entertainment customer to quickly identify content that has celebrities in it, so you can use it to power search engines. So if you want to find all that great content from Brad Pitt, it's a simple search into this API, and it'll tell you all of the videos that they've indexed that have Brad Pitt in it. This is interesting because they actually invoked a human rights organization called Business for Social Responsibility to conduct a formal assessment of this technology's impact on human rights. And so based on that, they have 3 principles they decided that are critical to this feature. So the first one being that celebrity is a carefully defined and restricted to a predefined list. And celebrities who do not want to be recognized by the API can opt out through an opt-out request process. This is not a general available feature. It said it's only for customers in the media and entertainment industry, and you have to be approved in advance before you're given access to this data set. And expanded terms of service apply to specifically address the unique concerns raised by this capability. And Google knows that the landscape is evolving with skyrocketing demands for personalized searchable video experiences, and this is putting unique pressures on the media industry, and this is hoping to help them.
I wonder if you're not a celebrity, if you could opt in.
I mean, I'm worried that if you're not a celebrity, you can be opted in, because this clearly is the kind of technology that can track people, any people, in media or closed caption TV, CCTV or anything else, basically. So this is kind of like the ultimate, I'm going to track you from any kind of video source service.
Yeah, I'm aware of a startup that does video tracking of using machine learning and facial recognition and tracks people. And when they showed me the demo, they're actually using movies to show that technology. But you very quickly think about like, oh, this company sells this product to the government, and you can see very quickly how this ties into TSA searching and all kinds of things at the airport and different venues where they want to track large amounts of people moving through a space very quickly and very easily with technology like this. So it's nice to see that Google's kind of saying, well, yes, it could be used for that evil intent, but or not evil intent, depending on how your political side is, but we want to make sure this feature is specifically for a specific use case, which is the media needs for searchable video experiences.
Yeah, I suppose from the media perspective, it's good to know where your exposure is. It's good to know if your songs are appearing on radio or TV, or if your face is appearing in the media, in news or anything else, because that's what public relations and publicity agents need to know whether they're doing a good job. But yeah, I guess there's always different uses for technology, and it's always concerning when it could certainly be used to, in the context of China and the Hong Kong protests, for example, used to track people through CCTV and hunt them down and put them in jail. So, yeah.
Yeah, these are several of the issues that the human rights organization they engage with talks about in their blog posts. So if you follow this link, there's a link to the nonprofit organization who did a whole blog post about the things they were concerned about.
Yep.
And how they help Google to kind of do this as a partnership. But it's a really good article. I didn't really summarize any of it here because it was a little bit less from the technology side. But if you're curious about the human rights angle of it and kind of the things Jonathan was talking about, you can definitely get some of their insight, which is really great.
Yeah, I'm just a cynical, negative Nancy, so don't mind me.
But what about all those people who are trying so hard to get recognized and found on the internet with social media? This is an opportunity. They should be allowed to opt in.
Wow.
My only goal at this point is to get Twitter verified. If I get Twitter verified, I'll be a true celebrity. So.
Yeah.
Google Cloud Storage data protection has been increased, so it can now fit your business better. Google has released several enhancements to the persistent disk. Google sees that customers have varying needs, and these trade-off considerations need to be addressed. And typical use cases that they see as these trade-offs are protecting applications that require regularly scheduled maintenance downtime. These apps need short-term protection with very fast rollback in case of maintenance fails. For these workloads, the data doesn't need to be backed up offsite, but can be in the same location as the source data. So this would be if you're doing a rollout of an application deployment and you want to be able to fail back very quickly. You would use this particular use case. Some customers need backup stored in specific regions to meet regulations or compliance requirements. Still need to be optimized for robust DR plans, including using multiple regions for backup or failover, which is the most common scenario, I think, out there. And another trade-off is between synchronicity and physical separation and latency. And there are plenty of mission-critical enterprise apps such as DBs that require zero recovery point objective synchronous data replication with physical separation. And to meet this, they're willing to tolerate higher write latencies to achieve zero RPOs. And so their new features for Google Persistent Disk provide these capabilities to you through 3 new features. First, the snapshot locally for regional snapshots, which addresses the first use case. Scheduled snapshots for persistent disk and regional persistent disk automatically replicated between zones meet all of these requirements in a big way, as well as these are all encrypted out of the box, but now also support the new customer-provided encryption keys.
That's really cool. I really hope Amazon listens to this kind of feedback and steps up to implement the same kind of features, because you deploy a service which needs a disk in an AZ, and if the AZ goes down, the volume is no longer accessible in the AZ. What do you do at that point? So Google have solved this by replicating the volume to every AZ, and so if you need to pick it up in a different place and boot up your compute again and start processing the data, then it's there for you. Whereas with Amazon, if the block device was in a region that went an AZ that went down, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. But AWS pretty much does this today, not for EBS volumes, but for Aurora storage, for EFS. So they have the technology. Then just the question is,
but it's all those
volumes,
abstracted things, though. I mean, if you want to spin up a Confluent server or Jira server or some kind of service which relies on local storage, it's only in one AZ. And unless you use something like DRDB or something to replicate blocks between different AZs, it sucks.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I'm just saying they have the technology. They have the technology to do it.
They do.
And the question is, why haven't they released it yet?
Yeah, they have the technology. They have not exposed it to us as consumers, for sure. And right. I hope this kind of pressures them into doing the same thing.
For sure.
I agree.
Yeah, I concur. There you go.
I definitely these use cases exist, and the amount of stitching you have to do between a simple EBS snapshot and then the ability to replicate that to another region, that all requires Lambda in a lot of ways. And AWS backup is kind of a good starting place as they automate some of that work, but it still would be nice if it just automatically snapshot to the other region versus snapshotted in this region, or gave me options to do all the things. That would be great.
I mean, there's such a difference in what you do, what you have to plan for if you're near real-time RPO versus zero RPO. That just makes
I don't even
difference.
I don't even think Amazon could support a zero RPO at this point with their architecture. Like you'd have to design it into your app and write to dual databases and dual regions for zero. So I mean, it can be done. It's just you're taking that work on in your app here versus in the primitive. So
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get something at re:Invent. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah. But I'm sure it's something that many customers want to solve, and so it's something they should fix at the platform layer.
It would be nice, and why we talked about just a second ago the Google issue with that availability across regions and all that kind of stuff. I get that design parameter, but also give me the tools then to allow me to ship things quickly to other regions so I can support those use cases, especially in things like RDS. I want that multi-region capability without having to think about it. So. All right, moving on. Introducing TensorFlow Enterprise from Google. Supported, scalable, and seamless TensorFlow in the cloud. If you're developing AI, of course, you're most likely using TensorFlow, which was open sourced by Google in 2015, and it became very popular. But enterprise users have higher demands and expectations for running supported, scalable, and seamless machine learning workloads. So TensorFlow for Enterprise adds 3 new features, including enterprise-grade support, cloud scale performance, and across the Google Cloud, leveraging things like Kubernetes or the AI platform natively. The cloud scale performance is the ability to use the TensorFlow deep learning VMs and deep learning containers. And TensorFlow Enterprise customers have increased data reading times up to 3x faster, drastically accelerating their workloads. And then in the support side, you have support for certain versions of TensorFlow for up to 3 years with bug fixes and support. And that's a big deal. So if you're using TensorFlow and you need support or you need help, Google is there to help you.
Yeah, as a technologist, I would say these aren't features. There's nothing new here as far as TensorFlow goes. It's all about selling more services to customers who want to use TensorFlow for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there was a note here about because Google created an open source TensorFlow, the Google Cloud is uniquely positioned to offer support and insights directly from the TensorFlow team itself. So you are paying for access directly to the developers in some ways for TensorFlow. So if you have that feature you are super passionate about getting into TensorFlow, you can directly talk to the TensorFlow team, which is kind of nice. But I assume they're also available on GitHub and other areas where you could find them to also ask for those same features.
Yep.
And our final Google story for the night, exploring container security. You can now use your own keys to protect your data on Google Kubernetes. Of course, Google Kubernetes has always encrypted your data at rest by default, including data in GKE. However, you may need to do this with your own keys now, and with the new persistent disk features, you can now encrypt the data using customer-provided keys, or CMEK keys. Generally available for GKE secrets encryption, so you can also protect your Kubernetes secrets, and customer magic crypto keys are available for persistent disks now in beta. So pretty nice security additions for both of those.
Yes. It's just great. You have to, when you get to keep your own keys, I know that a lot of these services are effectively compliant for lots of different standards, but if you get to keep your own keys, oftentimes, even if they aren't compliant, you're pretty clear if the provider doesn't have the capability of accessing your data without your key. So
I find it kind of strange because it's envelope encryption, and so the key you provide is not the key that encrypts the data, it's the key that encrypts the key that encrypts the data. Right? And so potentially the provider already has access to the key. You have to trust them that they're only encrypting the key with your key and they have no other access to that key. It's kind of strange. I feel the same about KMS in Amazon. I feel like it's a veil of security rather than actually anything which provides any meaningful additional security to your data.
Do you think it's just optics, or do you think it actually ends up covering the letter of the law for certain compliance standards that haven't been updated yet?
Yeah.
Or is there another reason?
No, I think it's the second thing. It's all about customers maintaining control over the keys that encrypt the data. And in the case of envelope encryption, it's the keys that encrypt the keys that encrypt the data. And we want it that way because then Amazon or Google or Azure can on the back end rotate the real encryption keys and re-encrypt your data on whatever cadence they choose. But we maintain the control over the keys that encrypt those things in the cloud. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I like it. It definitely is a checkbox, I think, rather than a real improvement in security.
It always amazes me when you sit through some of those, when the product teams come in and they bring in the security guru and they go through the example of, like you're describing, the key that encrypts the key that encrypts the key. And you listen to it and it's all, yeah, but at the end, it's pretty much just a really long password, right?
Yeah, exactly. even the username really is part of the password.
Yeah.
It's a pair of things. Yeah.
I agree with you, but I also don't have a better solution because, when you talked about app level encryption, it gets much more complicated very quickly. And whether it's technologies like Bouncy Castle and others, they're difficult to use at times. And the compliance now relies on the app side, where the security people would just like to worry about it at the infrastructure level. So there's pluses and minuses to both models.
Yeah. I think the real kind of crux of the matter is it still relies on you trusting your provider to do the right thing with their encryption keys, because they could well keep a copy unencrypted or encrypt with their own keys. It's unless you encrypt the data yourself with your own keys and you know that nobody else has access to that information, there is no way to be sure that nobody else has access to the data. And so, as always, it's a trust issue.
Yeah, it's very much a trust but verify type thing, where you want the assurances, which is why you're relying on companies to come in and do the audits, because you can't do it yourself, and so that's a bit problematic.
Yeah.
Trust but contractually obligate.
Not quite as catchy.
Not quite as catchy. Yeah. All right, moving on to Azure Ignite Draft. So the draft came and went. We had the lovely Satya Nadella keynote on Monday, where he announced many things. Unfortunately, he announced nothing on Jonathan's list. Although he does argue that she should get a half point for the first one. So, Jonathan, I will let you make your argument for why you think you should deserve a half point for digital assistants to compete with Alexa or Google Home.
Well, I believe my comment was really about Microsoft needing to step up and sort of retake the market for digital assistants, and by implementing Cortana in Outlook, which is one of their flagship products. I think they are taking the right step in the right direction to take the digital assistant market by storm. And that sucks. It really sucks. I don't deserve a half point, and nor do they, damn it.
I mean, like, I listened to that.
Email, turn on my lights. Email, please turn on my lights.
Yeah, I listened to the prediction you made last week, again, this on the drive home today, and I heard you say, a round cylindrical object on your desk that has Cortana in it, which it was not what was announced. Now,
it was not.
There is Cortana now on a phone, which will help you with your email management, I guess. But yeah, I don't think this is a half point. Other times you've had a half point, they've been legit. This one, I'm not sure I agree.
It's not a half point. I'm very disappointed. I think they're missing a huge opportunity. They are. Seriously, they're years behind now for Google Home and Alexa in the home assistant market, and they're not going to catch up. People are going to choose their technology. They're going to start integrating their home security and media with a particular platform, and Microsoft is not it at this point. They've lost. I don't see how they can come back from this.
So I was thinking about this pick, and my only thought to you was, this is the Ignite conference, which is really targeted at IT professionals and IT specialists using Azure Cloud. And why I agree with all the things you said, I'm not sure this would be the right event to announce this device. I think this device would be announced more like a Surface event, where they announce the new Surfaces to the world, which did also just happen not that long ago. So you're still right, they're way behind and they have no plans to get there, but the Surfaces event would be where I would think a device like this would appear.
Yeah, potentially. I did think about that when I made the prediction, but I think about Amazon Alexa. They're all about developers adding new features, and it features in reInvent, and the same with Google. They want people to provide new skills.
So they have a different conference called Microsoft Build, which is for the developers. So if you're going to announce all those skills, that would be at the Build conference. If you're going to announce the device, it would be at just a normal press release for Surface. I think this audience in particular is very focused on Office 365, Dynamics, Azure, from a very IT perspective. I think that's the flaw in your thinking on this one.
It's a lost opportunity either way.
It is a lost opportunity, but I sort of see the thought process. But yeah, I also Googled around to see if there's been any rumors of a Cortana type hockey puck device, and I have not really seen anything on the internet about that topic. So I think they are missing it. But moving on to the winners from the loser side. You also missed on 3 more Azure regions in the U.S. and on more or improved tooling for DevOps communities, which they did announce DevOps tooling, just not on the keynote, so it was a close swing and a miss. Peter thought they would have Istio for AKS and 1 more region in Canada, going with you on the region thoughts, which both of those were a miss. But he did hit Visual Studio Online, which is their new online version of their IDE. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in depth here in a few minutes. So congratulations, Peter. That's a point for you. You're welcome. And then I missed on Azure Portal redesign and Oracle on Stage. And I hit on SageMaker Databricks like competitor, which we'll also talk about here in a minute. So Peter and I actually came out of this one tied. So congrats, Peter, as a equal winner to me.
Hey, good job. Good job.
We read the tea leaves better than Jonathan.
I will be the tiebreaker on this then, at the end of the Azure section.
I see. Yes, I mean you could potentially use one of these other items to potentially fill out this chart, but I think I don't have any other points as I read the notes, and I don't think I covered anything on Portal or on the Oracle on Stage. So there you go. Well, moving on to those announcements, as riveting as they were. So the first one. First of all, before we get into that, let's talk about a news story that I picked up on. On the Azure Reddit, there's a large number of customers reporting hitting virtual machine limits in US East regions, and also in a ZDNet article. According to ZDNet, some Azure customers began reporting they were hitting virtual machine limits in US East regions, particularly East US 2. Reports are Microsoft doesn't have enough of certain server types needed to spin up certain capacities. Microsoft has been encouraging users to employ VM reserved instances, especially in cases where they know ahead of time they will need to scale up. And this was first reported by Matt Burke on Twitter and a Reddit thread, like I mentioned. And the message you get from support if you reach out to them is, unfortunately, due to high demand for virtual machines in this region, we're not able to approve your quota request at this time. We are continuing to expedite the additional capacity for US East 2. And apparently someone reported that their account team told them that it'd be about 4 months before this issue was fully resolved.
4 months, wow. Like, one of the main use cases for cloud is that I don't need to worry about lead times for hardware. I don't need to order from Dell 3 months in advance and have it shipped to my data center and installed, then deployed. So 4 months is just ridiculous. I hope it's kind of like mismanagement on the side of Azure, and they can push people into choosing different types of instances, which they do have capacity for.
Yeah, I think it's this is the risk of having too many regions too soon.
Yeah,
is that the capacity problem becomes much more difficult. How do you use capex to buy that hardware? How do you get it installed quickly? How do you get it there? And this does happen to AWS at times as well, but they're typically for either bare metal instances where you want the full box of something, or in the very niche like TensorFlow or NVIDIA TPU type systems. And those are very clearly marked and told to you even in the press releases that these are limited availability. Please check with your account team if you need them, etc. But these seem like they're very common instance types, which is the bigger issue in my mind.
How miserable are you if you're one of the sales reps for Azure and you're trying to make your quota at the end of the quarter?
I mean, pick a different region. They have so many regions in the US. If they're out in that region, pick a different region.
Unfortunately, they don't have 3 more regions, though, to help you out.
They don't, I know. But should. Yeah.
All right. Now, for reals, moving on to the announcements. So my point comes from this first article. Companies of all sizes tackle real business problems with Azure AI. Azure has released a new machine learning designer, automated machine learning enhancements, and built-in notebooks for designated to meet the needs of data scientists and developers of all skill levels. Microsoft is continuing to invest in the Onyx Runtime 1.0, which simplifies the process for optimizing machine learning models from a variety of chipsets. And the new Azure Cognitive Services are comprehensive set of domain-specific, ready-to-use AI models. And the new Azure Cognitive Service called Personalizer, the industry's first AI service based on reinforcement learning, and the new cognitive search function to provide search capabilities to your enterprise or applications. So quite a few enhancements in the AI space in general.
What's the name of the racing league?
The Deep Racer?
Yeah. Can Microsoft sponsor a team using their own AI to
that would be awesome. Google, Azure, and Amazon all come in with their own, we have the best algorithm based on our solution to drive this car. That would be fantastic and a great marketing blitz by Azure and Google if they pulled that off. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's rules that say you can't do that, but that'd be great if you could. The new Azure Synapse Analytics. Today's businesses are forced to maintain two types of analytical systems: a data warehouse and a data lake. Azure Synapse Analytics is a new limitless analytics service that brings together enterprise data warehousing and big data analytics. And the Azure Synapse brings these two worlds together with a unified experience to ingest, prepare, manage, and serve data for immediate business intelligence and machines. Simply put, Azure Synapse is the next evolution of Azure SQL Data Warehouse, runs all the TPC-H queries at petabyte scale, and during the demo, they trounced both Redshift and BigQuery on their on-screen demo, which had no details about the schema or the query they were running or anything else. I said transaction per second, but it was really concurrent users, so it was 100 concurrent users. Okay. Sorry, I misspoke.
That's okay.
It's good to see that we're getting parity between the AI offerings for sure. This kind of innovation will only drive further innovation between the providers.
Well, I think from the data warehousing capabilities, and like I can imagine the BI team at our day job just being like super excited about this feature, because the amount of work they do with Tableau and the data warehouse and the data ingestion they do, this brings it all into kind of a unified experience that really makes it simple. I could see them being super jazzed with this. All right. The next item is the new capabilities for hybrid, and this is the new Azure Arc service. This is basically, I can summarize all these words into basically, this is Anthos for Azure.
There you go.
So basically, customers are demanding hybrid capabilities, and Azure continues to deliver on their customers' needs to enable this purposeful innovation. 2 years ago, of course, they delivered Azure Stack to enable a consistent cloud model deployable on-premises. And over the past year, they've extended Azure to provide DevOps for any environment and any cloud. And now with the new Arc service, Arc is a set of technologies that unlocks new hybrid scenarios for customers by bringing Azure services and management to any infrastructure, including AWS or GCP. Azure Arc is available for preview starting on Monday, and there are several benefits, including the consistent and unified approach to managing different environments using robust, established capabilities such as Azure Resource Manager, Azure Cloud Shell, Azure Portal, API, and Azure Policies. Developers can build containerized apps with the tools of their choice, and IT teams can ensure the apps are deployed, configured, and managed uniformly using GitOps, and makes it easy to implement cloud security across environments with centralized role-based access control and security policies. And you can also use this to deploy Azure SQL Database and Azure Database for Postgres in your environment on top of Kubernetes or VMs, all in your environment, which is really nice. So this is just the first two services that they're going to be bringing to the Arc, but I assume that they will have a lot more services coming in that direction over the next year.
The Arc, huh? The services come 2 by 2, right?
I was thinking more of like they really should have an Azure React service so that you could run Azure React on the Arc, React Arc. So
it's strange because Microsoft, if more than anybody, their cloud offering is taking longer and longer to kind of mirror the services or the features that people already had on-prem. Whereas Google and Amazon are building new services which never existed before. And so as far as the Arc goes, I see it more of it's more of a parity between what you already had in a private data center and the cloud versus what Amazon and Google offer, which is they're kind of pushing things back the other way. They're like, you can now run the cloud services in your local environments, whereas Microsoft are like, now you can run your things you've been running for 20 years in your local environments in the cloud.
Well, I think this is also pushing the cloud down to this is to run on premise, right? So you use Azure Stack or you use this Arc software on your own hardware, and then you're running those services natively in your data center. So it's very similar to what Anthos is doing. Or you can also use this to run it on AWS or GCP. So if you want to use Azure Kubernetes service, for example, you could potentially use Arc to do that across every data center you have, plus every cloud provider your company uses, and have a standard Kubernetes platform, just like Anthos does. So I think they are doing the same thing, but they're coming at it from a very IT-focused perspective.
Yeah.
Are they charging like $10,000 a month to test it out?
There was no pricing that I saw on any of these announcements, mostly because it wasn't fully out when this all dropped for us to report on it. So, but I'm sure it'll be coming soon.
It's all free with the Azure credits.
There you go. Yeah, really.
Exactly, with your enterprise agreement.
Join us.
I do love that concept of just being able to port all of your provisioning code to your own data center as well.
The developer tools were updated with some new capabilities. This was mentioned as an item that if they had mentioned it on stage, you would have been in good shape, Jonathan, but they didn't.
I'm going to change the rules for next time. It should be any announcement during the conference should be included.
Sure. It's gonna be so hard to track all that down, especially like at reInvent, where there's so many sessions where they announce little features here and there. It would be a nightmare. But anyway, we discuss the rules later, Jonathan. Discuss the rules later. But they did talk about IntelliCode and using MLAI to autocomplete code using examples from around the open source ecosystem. So they scan all that great code they have in GitHub, and they determine machine learning patterns for the best code, and they help you autocomplete that in Visual Studio. The new Visual Studio Online feature we talked about earlier. One of the biggest pain points for developers is setting up their new dev box, and to make this easier for Microsoft is releasing the preview of Visual Studio Online, which leverages the power of the cloud to make it easy to create and share dedicated development environments on demand. You can create a pre-configured isolated environment for each project, each repo, or each task in just a few minutes. As well as they did 2 general announcement features for both PowerShell support for Azure Functions and Azure Function Premium Plan that makes cold start a thing of the past on Azure. So you can now pay for the purchase, the ability to have better SLA once again on Azure.
Isn't it interesting that Amazon are pushing people locally to do development work? You know, they've got the SAM local stuff. They've got all these kind of Docker containers where you can simulate Amazon services locally. You don't need to deploy things to the cloud to do unit testing or anything else. Whereas Azure are encouraging you, use our resources. You know, it's a weird discrepancy between the two providers, which I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I mean, Amazon does have Cloud 9, which gives you the same kind of capability of this cloud-based IDE that lets you write and build stuff right inside the browser and run it inside AWS's cloud. So it's more of an us-to announcement to AWS, and I think what Google also announced as well, which is a similar capability of a Google Cloud Editor IDE. So I think it's actually more of a catch-up than it is something innovative.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants everything. We want them both. We want to be able to test locally and easily develop in the cloud.
Well, how do you guys both like intranets? Has your intranet been good to you guys lately?
Intranet?
I never visit the intranet. Really, it's one of those things where I go when somebody just tells me there's something good to see there. It's like a newspaper. I don't read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're too small.
Well, one of the big problems I've always had with intranets is that they're always out of date, it seems like, because things change, business processes change, software changes, all these things. And so while there's typically pockets of information where you can find the most current stuff, it's hard to find. So Microsoft actually is trying to give you a solution for this problem, which is their new Project Cortex. Project Cortex is the first new service they're adding to Office 365 since MS Teams was announced 2 years ago. This takes different kinds of files scattered throughout a company, from Word docs, PowerPoints, Dynamics, Salesforce, all these things, and organizes them using AI into topics. And it basically creates very mini wiki page areas, like very, very similar to Confluence. In fact, when I looked at the demo, I was like, wow, that looks like Confluence, but with Microsoft branding. And this basically automatically creates these pages, these experiences based on topics, and so you can kind of keep your intranet more up to date just by companies and team members doing their normal day-to-day jobs. A common scenario they use as an example would be a sales rep would be writing up a proposal in Word, can now use the app search box on top of their Word document to look up relevant materials and drop them right into a document that they're working on. Or another example was, sometimes companies have their own dictionary of acronyms, and so a new employee or someone who's not familiar with an acronym might get an email saying, something's happening in the core project next week, and they're like, I don't know what the core project is, and this AI machine learning for Cortex will actually highlight that word and link it back to the Wikipedia article that basically details what the core project is, what it means, and all the things based on that machine learning intelligence. So this is actually kind of cool. I'm curious to see what it actually looks like in reality, because when you first heard about SharePoint 10, 15 years ago, it sounded cool too, and it didn't turn out so great. So I'm hoping this has a better experience overall in this space for this new capability of Cortex, which is coming later this year.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how they can, how it can determine what is relevant without having a whole lot of context, business context.
Yep, I'm not sure either. That's why I'm curious to see what it does.
Yeah, it'll be cool. If it works, that's pretty cool.
I've been burned by SharePoint over the years. Like Microsoft's small business server, like 19, 20 years ago, was like all driven by SharePoint, and it sucks. It really does.
And it's only gotten worse and worse. And my first real hatred of SharePoint came when I looked at the database schema one day and was trying to figure out how to pull data out of it, and that schema is scary.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's like figuring out the Windows registry.
The registry is more organized than that database is.
Well, I guess we can just say there's definitely room for improvement here, and I'm glad to see they're taking some steps to fix some gaps.
Yeah,
Indeed,
for sure.
indeed. Some other productivity improvements for you in the Office 365 suite. Cortana feature in iOS will now read out your emails and schedule meetings for you. This will also be able to produce you a daily email briefing that'll tell you what your plan is for the day, which they'll need to send to me every 10 minutes because my schedule changes every 10 minutes, it seems like at work. So I don't know how that daily briefing will work out. But
Yeah, I wish you could set Outlook to not accept meetings that are scheduled for like less than an hour in advance or something, because it sucks to check your schedule in the morning and find that somebody sent you an invite 5 minutes before something actually starts. It's need more controls there over our personal time.
I just wish they would port over the feature from Windows Outlook to Mac Outlook, where I can basically auto-decline any meeting that is scheduled on top of another meeting.
Yep.
That'd be a great feature to have on the Mac client, but they don't have. The next item here in the productivity side is a new Fluid framework now in beta to make it easier for companies to integrate Office 365 collaboration directly into their application. So if you're doing a custom application for productivity in your organization, you want to pull in those Office 365 things, you can do that right there. This reminds me a little bit about Salesforce Chatter. I don't know if you guys ever used that, but it was basically a social network that kind of added into Salesforce, and it was supposed to make it easy for you to pull Salesforce records right into a two-way dialogue between you and someone else. Similar to that. And then Microsoft Edge, which is their new browser replacement for Internet Explorer, has now gone to release candidate stage. They've ditched the terrible E logo, so they have a new circular logo that looks somewhat like the Firefox logo.
Somewhat is an understatement for sure, yeah.
An understatement for sure. And then they also talked about how the new Edge browser is integrated into Bing. And so if you're in Edge and you go to private browser mode, that'll also pass over to Bing. So Bing won't track you as well when you're in private browser mode. So that's kind of nice. I did play with it because I was curious what it was like on my Mac, and it's actually not bad. It's not enough to sway me to move over off of Chrome or Firefox, but it's not a bad try. So maybe it'll get some adoption, especially if it starts supporting some of these other technologies in the Office suite. So we'll see.
I mean, the fact that they have to integrate it with Bing to exclude you in like incognito mode from being tracked is kind of weird, right? You'd think that if you choose private browsing mode or incognito mode, then you wouldn't be tracked anyway. So why? Why is it a thing? You know?
I mean, there's still things that get passed even in incognito mode around your IP address and the browser you're using, some of the stuff that should not get sent over. That can still be determined based on other parameters they drop into the HTML code or the JavaScript code. The IP can still be used to sort of track you if it's static to your house. So I think by extending some of that into Bing, you get a little bit more transparency, and you can see. If you ever go to Google and you ask for a complete data download of Google, what they know about you, it's a little bit shocking to know what they actually know about you. And so I think there's definitely probably opportunities for improvement there as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's very obvious when you do Google search, even in incognito mode, that the results are very context based on your IP, because we talk about something at home and somebody else Googles something, and you can clearly see that the predictive search comes up with something that somebody else already searched for within the home. So I guess it kind of makes sense that they're integrating the opt out as far as Bing goes and incognito. So it's good.
Moving on to some network features, they are enabling IPv4 and IPv6 dual stack capabilities in the next month or so. The Azure Private Link is now available in all regions. The Azure Firewall Threat Intelligence is now generally available, and the Azure Internet Analyzer, which is a client-side analyzer to determine what may be impacting a user's internet performance, is now available in beta as well. So quite a few enhancements to help you automate and streamline your in-network capabilities of Azure. I mean, IPv6 seems like a little late to the party.
It does. It's been like 12, 13 years now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Google, I think, already has IPv6, and so does AWS. They've had it for a couple of years, at least, if not longer. And it's and private link now available in all regions. That should have been there at launch, in my opinion. But this internet analyzer is actually kind of cool. If you look at the demo of it, it's a kind of a quick little utility that the client can launch, and then you give it your Azure endpoints that app's going to talk to, and it basically does a bunch of tests and route checks and kind of gives you ideas of where you might see latency or issues in your path.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice.
Maybe, but I think those things are the types of things that I don't want to have to worry about in the cloud. I want somebody else to manage those things for me. I don't care about those things at that level anymore.
Well, the last mile is still very, very much a difficult area to troubleshoot, even for a cloud provider. And so I think the Internet Analyzer, giving that client-side measurement service, gives you at least more visibility into what's happening versus, the stuff you want to have an IT person run for you. So I think it has a place, but I agree I would like to not worry about it. But the last mile is still problematic.
Definitely, and I guess we need more instrumentation in our web apps or our thick clients, whatever else.
Yeah, so instead of doing all that work, you can just deploy this capability into your app, or as a download from your support portal.
Cool.
What do you think the results would be if we ran that tool on my Wi-Fi network?
Ooh, it would be bad. I can tell you right now. It would recommend you move from the area of San Francisco you live in to a place with gigabit fiber.
Yes.
But if your commute that you've been doing to the South Bay every day for the last several months, I imagine you're ready to move.
Yeah, really. I know.
Yeah. I still find it weird that the tech center of the world has some of the crappiest internet service.
I know.
That is a little crazy. It also has the worst traffic too. So it's lots of things. Azure Infrastructure as a Service has a ton of improvements that they've announced at Azure Ignite this week. So all of the AMD EPYC systems have been updated to the new 7452 processor. So if you're using the EA v4, the EAS v4, bada bada bing v4, I don't know. There are a bunch of acronyms here. Those are all available to you now in the regions, of course, where they have them, or enough of them for you. There's a new NVV4 series VM for HPC workloads. The Azure VMware capability has now been extended to Western Europe. Azure migrates to streamline migration from physical to virtual machines from on-premise to the cloud has been updated. The Azure Gen 2 VMs are now available. Azure Virtual Machine Scale Sets features are now in preview for you. And then several more HPC workloads and Azure VMs available for you in preview, as well as the new proximity placement groups are generally available. And the biggest announcement, which they had the least amount of information on, is the Azure Spot VMs coming very soon to Azure. Finally being the last of the cloud providers to offer you Spot.
Yeah, it's a weird stealth announcement, really. I assumed that everybody had Spot, some kind of equivalent of Spot instances at least, but to see this kind of like the last paragraph of the press release was kind of weird, really.
It was very, very, very light on details,
definitely.
which makes me think that they're maybe very early in this process to build this capability, but I'm glad to see they're going to get it as well, because I think that's a good improvement.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're actually going to land in U.S. East in 4 months.
Maybe not, though, because you want to sell the capacity you are not selling in Spot, not the capacity you need. So I don't know about that. But if one of the problems with Azure is that you can't get the capacity, that Spot market pricing might be a little bit steep.
Yeah.
So watch out for that. And then, of course, for your business-critical applications that you're willing to pay a lot of money for premium performance, there's several new features for you as well. We mentioned earlier the premium functions capability to now eliminate cold start issues. There's also a preview for a new smaller 4, 8, and 16 gigabit size on premium SSDs, standard SSDs, and ultra disks to provide lower costs for your customers. Preview of a new bursting capability on applicable premium SSD with up to 30x performance for spiky workloads. Preview of a new Azure Data Lake Service Multi-Protocol Access, which provides core to blob features with Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, including logging, tiering, and event grid integration. Preview of the Azure Peering Services, which targets customers with an internet-first network strategy for accessing Azure and SaaS services. The general availability of satellite support for ExpressRoute. The general availability of the Azure Bastion host. And the preview of the new object replication service to support geo-distributed apps, and many enhancements to the Azure Security Center, including integration with Qualys, support for Kubernetes containers, integration of security recommendations for partners, including Checkpoint, Tenable, and CyberArk, and Sentinel enhancements, including connectors for both Citrix and Zscaler, and then of course Azure Managed Disks, which we've talked about in the last few weeks. So lots of really interesting announcements for you in Azure. If you're an Azure customer, definitely check out the recaps that Azure is sending out to you. A lot of really great information, probably more than we even covered here, just because there was a very large amount of content dropped this week from Azure Ignite. So that's it for Ignite.
A lot of new features. It's been pretty cool. Nothing kind of wowed me really. No amazing new features. A lot of catch up things, but it's good that they're much more on par with Google and Amazon than they were before.
For me, it's not necessarily the differentiators. It's the showstoppers that you need and you don't have yet that stop people from moving significant workloads into your cloud. Got to get rid of all the showstoppers.
Yep, for sure. All right, moving on to the lightning round, Peter.
Lightning round. AWS for WordPress plugin now available and with new Amazon CloudFront workflow.
So this is the most interesting announcement I've seen from AWS in a long time, because this is a very niche, full application requirement. This is not a primitive in any way. And I'm super happy about this because it will be used on the CloudPod website.
Oh, nice.
So what are they doing? Are they caching particular assets, or what's the detail here?
Yeah, so basically they plugged a plugin in directly into the WordPress code so that any of the static objects, the podcast MP3 files, etc., all get uploaded to Azure CloudFront. They handle all the distribution of the CloudFront. They set it up for you. They do all the redirects, so it's really kind of simple. As well as it integrates into a bunch of other things. So if this was if our WordPress site was doing blog posts more regularly than just a 25th anniversary or 25th episode recap show blog post, you could actually link it to Poly, and it would give you a Poly a recording of what your blog post said, which is kind of cool. So there's definitely some interesting integrations with it. It does tie directly into roles, which is nice. So the CloudPod website runs on a container on an ECS host that I run in my account, and that's all using task-based roles. And so it was really easy to set up and really configure. I haven't turned it on quite yet because I'm a little concerned about how it'll mess with our metrics for the podcast downloads. Okay. But it is pretty interesting to see what it can do. Because I had another plugin that was doing everything but the podcast media that I paid for, which was pretty good as well. But this is just much more streamlined, much simpler.
Cool.
Amazon Chime now supports an in-room experience on Dolby Voice Room.
How much should Dolby pay Amazon to build this feature for Amazon?
How weird, right? The last thing I care about on a conference call with a bunch of tech people is the quality of their voices. I'm not asking for singing or dancing or anything else. I just want the details. So the soft tone voices and the wonderful fidelity is kind of meaningless, really.
It's a weird product because I had never heard of it. So it's similar to what Google created, which was kind of this very small conference system to tie into Hangouts. On Google, it's basically just a speakerphone and a small webcam, and that's the Dolby Voice Room. So it's very, very lightweight. But yeah, it's a little weird to come from Dolby of all people.
Yeah, I guess they're still maintaining relevance.
I don't know why they want to compete with Polycom. It just seems like a bad business case for Dolby.
Yeah.
AWS CodeStar enables automating toolchain setup through CloudFormation.
I mean, if you want to have a really weird implementation of CloudFormation, this is a way to do it.
What if you want to run that CloudFormation via a pipeline? What would you use?
Jenkins.
CodeStar.
TensorFlow Enterprise, Jenkins.
Which comes
Code
first?
pipeline, Jonathan. This is the Amazon section.
No, it's not.
AWS Secrets Manager now supports larger size for secrets and resource policies and higher request rate for Get Secret Value API.
I mean, if I were to be a guessing man, I would say that they're going to be announcing Secrets Manager integration for Lambda at reInvent that would require this higher request rate problem.
Ooh. Only 1,500 requests a second, though. That's
It's up from 1,000. It went up to 1,000 before. It was like 100 to 1,000, now to 1,500. They're just slowly ramping this one up.
You can now create serverless applications with an automated deployment pipeline from the AWS Lambda console.
Which everyone wants is a serverless application that requires a GUI to configure and maintain. Perfect.
So there's only one thing I dislike more than developing applications in the GUI, and that is the SAM platform. I've tried so hard in the last 2 days to love and develop some kind of like sensible kind of guidelines for people to use SAM to do local development and local testing, and it kind of sucks. Like if you search for documentation and you want to follow what should be a simple Hello World tutorial, and you end up with like 9 or 10 tabs open for all the different linked pieces of documentation you need to follow with the instructions for. It really sucks. It really does.
So have you tried serverless framework
That's what
yet?
I'm trying. It's a serverless framework, but like...
No. SAM is Amazon's thing. Serverless.com, which is the serverless framework, is something different.
No, the SAM got kind of open source as the serverless framework.
I actually don't think that's the case. I think they're because serverless is designed for any cloud, where SAM is Amazon specific. That's my understanding, at least. And I met the developer, actually, the main guy who created serverless.com. I can connect you to, so you can bitch at him directly.
I would love that for sure. It's like they give you all these tools, like we can run step functions locally and lambda functions locally. But if you actually follow the guidelines for SAM to build the template and YAML and everything else, like you reach a point where you realize you can't actually go any further with this thing. You can't like generate the state file. You can't generate the temp functions, the state machine or anything else. It's like they missed a step someplace.
Yeah. So the AWS serverless application model is different than the serverless framework, is my understanding.
Okay.
So,
New feature enables visibility of employees' AWS certification completions.
Because who doesn't love violating your employees' privacy by telling them, hey, your certification ends in 2 weeks. Please go get certified.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room here, which is I think some of the best tech people I've worked with have always been the people with no certifications. You know, they don't...
I feel attacked, Jonathan.
They don't prioritize those things, really.
I have a certification.
I'm sure you do.
Are you just saying I'm not one of the best people you work with?
I'm not devaluing what you have, but I'm saying that there are other people who don't have certifications that are equally as good.
I bet Peter has a certification too.
I have all... Do I have all 5? No, I have 4, I think. I have like 4.
I just want you to remember this, Peter, when you're scoring the lightning round.
Should I just give it to myself?
Oh no! This is just that Jonathan attacked
you.
Oh
yeah.
Said you weren't technically as capable. I'm just saying when you score the lightning round, remember these things.
I'm gonna be completely objective today when scoring.
Absolutely,
I'm sure you are. Yeah, sure.
He's nothing but the utmost judge, jury, and executioner.
But when you take it, when you get a certification, and you're very, very qualified. You've worked with Amazon for like 5, 6, 7 years or something, and you get a certification like an associate architect. People look at you and say, "Oh, you're only an associate architect. Well, why don't you have the next thing? Why don't you have the next thing?" It's like this constant escalation of qualifications, and I'm sure Amazon love it because they charge you for these things. But I kind of feel like, sure, they somewhat justify or at least demonstrate your skill in a certain thing, but I kind of disagree with the focus on certifications as being a metric to measure good engineers by.
I think it's one. I think it's more about the metrics. And when we interview people, like we require everybody to get certifications, mostly because we have to meet certain levels of partner
as a partner,
status.
It's a much different thing.
but because we had to do that, I went and got the certs because I always, I've been very similar to Jonathan in my thought process. But getting the pro certs, you got to really understand some of the details of the services, and it set my expectations when I do interview new people who still have to go through full hands-on, screen share, brutal sessions with us.
Yeah.
But knowing they have their cert, I know what they went through to get it, and I know that they have a base understanding that I don't know if they don't have the cert. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Maybe.
And then I got to ask.
Maybe.
Right? I got to ask all the questions.
Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people who have either lost their jobs or decide they want to get a new job, and they go off and they get a certification because I think that's what they need to get the new gig kind of thing. And it's a checkbox. Like they with no practical experience,
it's a checkbox.
Yeah, in how to actually use these things, or how to architect services to use these things properly. It's nothing more than a checkbox, and so I think, sure, it shows that you at least have some awareness of these services, but in the grand scheme of things, I think experience trumps everything.
All I hear is fear.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Okay. That's right, FUD.
We've gone into mud round.
That's all I hear is that you're afraid to take the test.
I don't have a certification. I'll say that right now. Yeah.
We took it from lightning round to mud round. Back to lightning round. AWS RoboMaker now supports conditional over-the-air deployment.
I'm looking forward to this getting connected to Google and Azure, so they can then win the car race on the Deep Racer.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this. I saw this announcement, and I'm thinking the cars are just a distraction, right? You know that Amazon are using this same tooling to build their delivery drones, for example, and so by having like the selective over-the-air deployments, they can do blue-green between different sets of drones, whatever the case may be. So I think I'm looking forward to some really cool announcements at reInvent around the kind of applications they developed using this technology.
We will look out for your guesses on that.
I'm a little nervous it's going to be a disappointment this year, but we'll see.
No disappointment. It's going to be the best year ever.
Best year ever.
Now available new C5D instance sizes and bare metal instances.
So normally this would be a main show topic, but we talked about the C5s not that long ago, the new massive SAP HANA, and since they didn't include pricing, I just said it's lightning round this week. So nice. There you go.
Yeah, C5D 24x large, only 96 processors and only 192 gig of RAM.
Google AutoML translation goes GA plus updates to translation API.
Does it support Australian?
Ooh.
Nice try.
AWS
in a row.
No. AWS Service Catalog enables transfer of provisioned product ownership.
I mean, if this is a step towards being able to transfer things like EC2 instances and RDS databases to other accounts, then this is awesome. If this is really just for Service Catalog, then I'm kind of disappointed.
That's kind of weird, right? Once you deployed something, there's no concept of ownership of a resource. So to kind of like half-ass implement this in Service Catalog is bizarre to me.
I think this is really about, because I think when you deploy something in Service Catalog, it's tied to your user persona in the console, and so when you leave, then if you want to update it, you can't do that. So now you can transfer to someone else in your AWS account. But it's a pretty niche problem because I can count the number of companies I've seen use Amazon Service Catalog on one hand. So
yeah, I don't want to give credit for fixing things, fixing problems that you created yourself. So yeah, this is nothing to me.
I kind of like Service Catalog. Amazon S3 inventory now reports the intelligent tiering access tier for objects.
What do you mean you like Service Catalog? for what?
I like it. I like it so that people could launch an approved set of services without having the rights to launch the underlying native.
But why don't you want to give people that level of control over what they deploy?
Because they don't know what they're doing. They just get themselves into trouble. They just make a mess. This way they can only launch, but you get self-service of a higher level of service offering that you can define for your business. I don't see why you don't like it.
Give me an example.
Hey,
what kind of thing? Give me like a really good example of what can you put into a Service Catalog that you want your users, your incompetent users, to self-service that you don't want to manage at a different level.
Wait, that you don't want them to manage at a different level? A dev environment.
You put a dev environment for a particular service,
load up the whole just load up the whole thing in Service Catalog. They spin it up. They get their endpoint. They don't need access to go also spin up 50 C5 servers that they didn't have any need for, or made a mistake when they were using their CLI credentials and they wrote some crazy nested loop function.
I mean, I guess I could see this for some use cases, like performance testing or QA, where you want them to deploy like a known configuration.
Yeah.
But as far as dev goes, you want those people to be able to tweak with things. They're the people you should be trusting with deploying things.
Well, it depends, though. If you have a DevOps organization, yes, because they know the whole stack. If you have developers who don't, and you don't want to teach them how, you create service catalog and say, click there. You get your stuff.
Yeah. We should talk more on this.
That's just my opinion. You don't have to use it. I won't make you use it, I promise.
I can see it in a bigger organization that require, that it's very distributed. IT is one organization, but you have business units that want to be able to be enabled. Instead of allowing shadow IT to happen, you kind of give the service catalog option to get standardized items out to teams. It's a big enterprise feature. I don't see it as a startup feature or a niche feature, but for companies that have massive standardization and approval processes and workflows and all that, I think it makes sense for them.
I agree. Thank you. Amazon S3 inventory now reports the intelligent... Oh, no, I already said that one, didn't I? No, we never talked about it.
You got interrupted because he was so incredulous that you like service catalog.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Amazon S3 inventory and now reporting the intelligent tiering access tier for their objects?
About damn time.
Seems like something you would have announced, with the feature. Since the whole point of intelligent tiering is to move from high cost to low cost, you'd think you'd want to be able to report on it with an inventory. It just seems logical.
What, you don't want to parse a 20 gig CSV file to find out?
Yeah, I mean, I love doing a looping API call, and then dump that into a CSV, and then dump that into BigQuery and make a BigQuery picture out of it. So yeah, I love doing that.
Finally, Google is partnering with HCL Technologies to scale enterprise cloud adoption.
Which is the most TK thing I think I've seen in a while, because when I was at Google Open World, HCL had a massive booth. So I'm going to guess that they have a pretty good relationship with Thomas Kurian, and that's why they're now a Google partner. So yeah, that's not weird at all.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that for sure. I mean, a Google partnering with HCL or HCL partnering with Google. It's it's like who's benefiting here? I think it's HCL for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you really want a good partner, you should just go to Foghorn Consulting.
So. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of which, Peter, why don't you tell us about your new status with Azure?
Yeah, we're now a gold partner with Azure.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
Yay, Foghorn.
So all this new stuff you got to get certified on now, so good luck to you on the... and if you could come back to us with an answer on how to decipher the premium ultra... SSDs, I would really help it. That'd be helpful. So we're
get
putting
right
you
on
that
that
now.
I'll get right on that.
Please get right on that. Get one of your fantastic engineers to.
Now, are you a premium gold partner or just a regular gold partner?
Are you an ultra premium gold partner?
Just gold.
Just gold.
Just gold.
Okay.
24 karat though. We are 24 karat gold.
Excellent.
Partner.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations to you and the Foghorn team.
Thank you. And the winner of the lightning round likes service catalog and has a certification.
Woo! Okay, it was a bit stretched when you said I like service catalog, but I understand service catalog.
Don't make me rethink my decision.
All right. Good. Well, it's been a fantastic week, a busy week with Ignite. We are heading into reInvent season, so we will be giving you guys some tips and tricks for attending reInvent over the next few weeks, and we will have the reInvent prediction show, which hopefully we do a little bit better on than we did on the Azure show. So there you go. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week on the Cloud Pod.
Good night, everybody.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and tweet us your feedback at #TheCloudPod. Or join our Slack channel, go to our website, thecloudpod.net for sign-up instructions.